Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Breaking Brews podcast, a podcast focused on the business side of beer and what's driving today's thriving craft beer industry. Whether you're one of the thousands of people making craft beer what it is today, or just love great beer and want to know more about it, this show is here to cover everything from sales, marketing, branding, culture, and much, much more. The Breaking Brews podcast delivers real-life scenarios and experiences from industry professionals that will help your beer knowledge evolve. To tap into more great beer content, visit breakingbrews.com today. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's get this session started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Breaking Brews podcast. I am your host, Jason Sircone, and you are tuned in to session 25 of the Word of the Poured. If you haven't checked out the archives yet, you need to do so as soon as you finish this episode. There are 24 other episodes of the Breaking Brews podcast waiting for your consumption. You can subscribe to the Breaking Brews podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play Music, and on Spotify. And you can stay up to date with show notes and everything you need to know about the podcast over at breakingbrews.com/podcast. And you can join the new Breaking Brews Podcast Central Facebook group. Hop over to Facebook, join the group, and tune in to all the fun and excitement happening on Facebook. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call a perfect segue. Because today's session is all about Facebook. I was joined by Kayleigh, who is the co-founder of Presidential Brewing in Portage, Michigan, right outside of Kalamazoo. Kayleigh and her husband Jake got Presidential Brewing up and running in early 2019, and they've had some tremendous success using organic marketing strategies with their Facebook page. And Kayleigh joined me on the show to tell her story and to give all of you guys some tips about how you can best utilize Facebook to your advantage. Now, I know we hear a lot of bad things said about Facebook. There's a lot of talk of lack of results. Facebook's constantly changing algorithms, so on and so forth. But without question, Facebook is one of the most powerful platforms on the planet today. Now, when you think about it on a grand scale, Facebook has brought society together in so many different ways. So many of us rely on Facebook for so many different things, be it news, be it staying connected to family and friends, connecting to brands that we love, and how it's brought society together and how it provides so many different things for all of us to learn, to grow, to stay connected. It's really the platform you want to be a part of if you're running a bar, a restaurant, a brewery, or any business in general. There's so many different opportunities to connect with current and potential consumers through Facebook. It's something you don't want to ignore. And I can understand there can be some frustration with some of the content that is seen on Facebook. And honestly, that's something that I think as adults we need to be taking some accountability for, because we're the ones filling the pipes with all of the shit. But that's a story for another day. But in all of that, there is a lot of value. And as a business, you can accomplish so much in regards to building brand loyalty, to building advocacy for your brand, for your product, for your service. No matter what area of the world you exist in, having Facebook is going to do great things for your business if you use it correctly. And that's something that Kayleigh and I are going to talk about today on the Breaking Brews podcast. One of the big tips that Kayleigh brings up is a subject that I've been captivated by ever since I caught the Hulu documentary for Firefest, where they were talking about that initial campaign that was building awareness for the event, and the term that they used was creating pause. And Kayleigh brings up the subject with another title that she had learned at a marketing conference called Stopping the Scroll, which is very important these days. We are short attention span by nature, and we have a lot going on, and we only have a few minutes here and there to spend time on these social networks, and consumers will be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it really takes something major to make them stop scrolling, to see what it's all about, to read the copy that's attached to an image, to a video, and we dive into that subject on today's episode of the show. Really want to give you guys a nice, well-rounded approach to utilizing organic Facebook marketing. And what that means is your posts on Facebook that you're not putting money behind. Now, we did touch on boosting posts, and Kayleigh will explain how she's utilized a small budget to make that work for her as well, and how you can do the same. But ideally, what we want to dive into today is what you can accomplish by just putting organic posts out there. Next week on the show, I'm going to be joined by Mr. Aaron Williams of Monday Night Brewing, and we're going to talk about the paid aspect of Facebook and how you can build successful ad campaigns. So between this episode and the next episode, session 26, as well as session 30, which we will get to in the future, you're going to have a great, well-rounded resource to refer to help you get the most from Facebook. So today's episode is jam-packed with some great information about Facebook. I'm going to step aside and let you guys unpack it all. This is session 26 of the Breaking Brews podcast with Kayleigh Losi of Presidential Brewing. All right, boys and girls. Well, we have Kayleigh Losi via Skype joining us on the Breaking Brews podcast today. What's up, Kayleigh?
Hey, how's it going?
Going very well. So you are in beautiful Michigan, correct?
I am. It is finally summer here, so we're enjoying it.
Yeah, I feel bad that I'm buried in the studio today because it's like a sweet 90 degrees outside here in Pittsburgh, PA. But we got to make podcasts for the beer working people. So here we are. All right, so we're going to learn a little bit more about Kayleigh before we get started. The reason I invited her on the podcast is her and her husband, Jake, started Presidential Brewing in Michigan. What part of Michigan are you in again?
We are in Portage, so just outside of Kalamazoo, the southwest part of the state.
Excellent. We're going to learn more about the brewery. We're going to learn more about Kayleigh. And today we're going to dive into some organic Facebook marketing. I put a post on the Craft Beer Professionals Facebook group that Kayleigh and I both are members of, seeing who had some feedback about organic posting. And Kayleigh, actually I put some feedback about paid advertising, but Kayleigh jumped in and said that she's had some tremendous success with organic posting. So I figured it's a great way to do a two-part series, because I know as marketers and social media managers at breweries and businesses everywhere, getting some traction with organic posts can be difficult and sometimes tricky.
Absolutely.
And Facebook is becoming a very big pay-to-play platform, but there is still a lot of value in organic posting. So we brought Kayleigh on the Breaking Brews podcast today to share some knowledge about some of the success that she has had with Presidential Brewing's Facebook account. Before we dive into that, Kayleigh, give us some background on yourself.
You know, I've been a little bit all over the place over the years. Spent a lot of time in college and shortly after in the service industry, bartending, waiting tables. Kind of fell in love with the bartending side of it. Learned a lot about craft beer. Having gone to college and grown up in West Michigan, I am very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of really great beer here. And when I was in college, spent some time at Hopcat in Grand Rapids. That is a beer bar full of just literally every kind of beer you could ever imagine. Met some great people there who taught me how to drink good beer, and just totally fell in love with the industry back then. Then spent some time over the last probably 7 or 8 years or so diving into my career as a graphic designer. So I have a degree in advertising and marketing. I do graphic design on the commercial side as my day job and also freelance for a number of small businesses. And that's kind of been the passion project side of design for me, is working with the little guy. Having started our brewery, but also a number of other small businesses over the years, I know how tough it can be to get started, to get quality branding, to get your name out there. It's expensive to hire designers, but it's also expensive on the flip side to have crappy design, no brand identity, things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's been really fun for me to help fellow small business owners kind of cultivate their identity that way. And when my husband had this harebrained idea to open a brewery, it ended up working out well that I have a background in marketing and design. It's something that is completely the opposite of what he does, but gives me a platform to use what I already know, use my experience there to help grow our business from day one.
So what did your husband do before having this quote-unquote harebrained idea to start a brewery?
Yeah, so Jake's background is in finance and IT. He spent a number of years working at a local bank and then moved over to Stryker, which is probably the largest employer in the Kalamazoo area here. They do medical instruments, that kind of thing. He worked on the corporate side, a little bit in the finance department, and then also, I'd be lying if I could tell you exactly what he did. More or less, he taught people how to be Excel nerds for a living. So polar opposite of who I am, what I do. But they say opposites attract, and I guess we're an example of that.
So did he homebrew, or did he have any experience in that?
Yeah. Kind of how this whole thing started was a number of years ago, probably 4.5, 5 years ago or so now. He and his brothers and his dad one night decided that they were going to buy this homebrew kit from Bell's. We're right down the road from Bell's here in Kalamazoo. And they took this kit and brewed a beer on our stove in the middle of the winter, sat outside a couple weeks later after the beer was ready, also in the winter, as you do in Michigan, drinking this beer. And that kind of launched this passion for him messing around with home brewing. He got more into it, and kind of the rest is history from there.
I love hearing those stories because so many people have that story of cooking or making a beer on the stove.
Yep.
And look what it leads to. I mean, I think how many breweries do we have because of that story? It's pretty awesome.
Exactly. It's definitely it's a prevalent thread. I think in the last probably 5 to 10 years more than ever that we've got home brewers that are taking the leap to try something out and do it professionally. And it's fun that we live in an environment now that's a reality for people, and it's actually a possibility.
Shout out to Jimmy Carter for making it legal in 1979. Leads to the industry we have today. So that passion led to Presidential Brewing, and let's hear the background about what inspired the name and ultimately what led to the brand that you guys are running with today.
Yeah, so that very first beer that was brewed on the stove back when, it was an oatmeal stout. That was the kit that they had purchased, and at the time, Barack Obama was president. So the pun of Oatbama came to be. So our very first beer was Oatbama, an oatmeal stout. It was fantastic. And I'm a beer snob. When I met Jake, ironically enough, he did not drink craft beer. So I was the one who kind of introduced him to it. He was a little nervous, I think, to let me try this beer because that was back when I was in the height of my beer snobbery. Like most of us, we go through that phase. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was delicious, and I love dark beer. That was my first love, and it was great. And I was a little worried to tell him that, afraid that his ego would take off. And to be fair, the second beer that he brewed was terrible. So that kept it in check a little bit. But so once the Oatbama was ready, brothers and dad and himself sat outside drinking a bunch of this beer. And after a growler or two of this beer, they began joking around about what other stupid president names they could come up with for beer. So by the end of that night, I think we had 10 or 12 names of funny president-themed, president-punned beers. And he came home and he told me the story, and I joked around, and I said, yeah, so great. So when you open, your own brewery in 10 years, you can call it the Oval Office, and we'll just have all president-named beers, and it'll be hilarious. And it was a joke. And we kind of, we joked around about that for a couple years as he continued doing the homebrew thing. It was one of those, oh, well, someday, and just kind of this funny, cheeky idea. But over the years, we continued. Jake homebrewed often. He upgraded to a system that he bought on Craigslist from another homebrewer who kind of got out of the practice. So my whole garage was transformed into a little brew house, and we would have these events once a month where people would come over to our house. It was called New Beer Friday, and we had a 4-tap kegerator in the basement. We would let people come in, try our beer, give us feedback, and it started as just this social thing, a chance to get people together. Most of us understand that beer is a catalyst for conversation. It brings people together. And one of the things that we noticed as we kept doing this is we had so many people from different groups that would never probably cross paths organically. So we'd have our friends from church hanging out with our neighbors, hanging out with our friends, hanging out with our coworkers. And it was this interesting blend of people. We had families, single people, people our parents' age versus us, and just this weird hodgepodge of people. But when you give somebody a beer, they'd sit around and just chat, and you find things to talk about. And people found ways to talk about things that brought them together, things that they shared or reasons they were alike, instead of immediately jumping to ways that they were different. And it just kind of brought about this feeling that if beer can do this here, can it do it on a larger scale? And can it do it with a topic like politics, which is obviously very touchy, especially in today's culture. So after a couple of years of doing these New Beer Fridays, it was to the point where we had 70 some people at our house every month. And I was like, listen, we got to open a brewery because I don't have enough room for more people in my house. So we did. And it was, a couple years of planning and dreaming and finding all the wrong buildings and then finally finding the right one and trying to secure the right financing and, all the nitty gritty that comes along with it. But it really just was born out of this desire to continue that conversation, to bring people together, to teach people how to talk to people that might be different than them, and that you can sit next to somebody at a bar that has completely different political views or religious views or a different upbringing or different family life. But if you have a great beer in front of you, a lot of times you kind of forget about that other stuff. You focus on, hey, what do we have in common? Instead of, well, let's immediately get to all the reasons that we disagree about things. And that was ultimately what led us to the place where we're at today.
That's great. That's a tremendous story.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
Any beers named after our current president?
Well, we have been very careful in this process, as you might imagine. Politics are touchy, obviously. We had a lot of people ask us, are you insane especially in today's political culture, are you really going to open a brewery centered around presidents? And yes, we are, and we did. And the whole point of everything is we like to have fun with things. We have beers named after all sorts of presidents. We poke fun at both sides. We like to remind people that in the 2016 election, Jake and I we're married and we voted differently. Mm-hmm. So we're not pushing one thing or another. We just like to have fun with it all. So one of our original beers that we released when we opened, it's a coffee blonde. We actually call it a cafefe blonde. And it's called Fake Brews. So it's light in color, doesn't look like it should taste like coffee, but it does. So Fake Brews that was a really popular one that we did here. So we had Fake Brews and the Oat Bomba on at the beginning just to make sure that both sides were fully happy.
Love it. Well, let's talk more about your Facebook advertising.
Yeah.
So, as I said at the top of the show, I would say pretty much every brewery that you come across has a Facebook page. And if you don't, you really should, because it's a tremendous way to communicate with your potential customers, with your current customers. The event management aspect of Facebook is always been one of my favorites and something that I recommend to everybody. You can do so much to promote your events and all the different happenings, be it just happy hour or if you're doing something special like a release or a big party at your brewery, whatever the case may be. That aspect of Facebook is always powerful. But over the years, Facebook has implemented different algorithms that have made it a little bit trickier to gain significant traction with your organic posting. So, again, not saying that that's something you should ignore, and that's why Kayleigh's on the show today, because she's going to share some of the stories of success that she's had at Presidential Brewing with her Facebook page. So let's start with the very beginning. How did you build your following for the Facebook page on Presidential Brewing?
So we actually started our Facebook page before we ever knew that we were going to open a brewery. And that came from a suggestion from one of Jake's coworkers when he was working, corporate America at Stryker. And he was home brewing. We had started doing these New Beer Friday events. And we had a Facebook group on Facebook where we would invite people that would come to this event. But one of Jake's coworkers said, the group is great. It's fine to reach the people that you already know, but you should really consider starting a Facebook page. And, we were kind of like, well, we're not even sure we're going to ever do anything with this. It's kind of a hobby right now. She said, yeah, but if you ever do go big with it, if you ever decide that you're going to actually build a brewery, why not start now? People are curious. People want to know. The beer lovers out there, whether even if you're only a home brewer for the rest of your life, share your experience. Talk about what you're doing. Bring other people into it. Let them see the behind the scenes stuff. And just said, all right. So we created a Facebook page, and this was, 2 years ago now, I think. and just kind of tracked Jake's homebrew adventure. So he would do a live video from our garage on brew day and talk about the beer he was brewing and what hops he was putting into it, and, kind of walk people through the steps of dry hopping a beer or cold crashing a beer, or what fermentation looks like. We'd open up the fermentation fridge and show people, this glass carboy bubbling over during fermentation, and just kind of opening up the door to people who weren't interested in brewing, but were just curious. What does it look like from the other side? And originally it was a lot of friends and family, coworkers, neighbors, whoever that began to follow along. But we started using that page to invite people to New Beer Friday. Those New Beer Friday events, often people would invite other people. So we'd have strangers we've never met showing up at our house because someone had invited them. And once we started using this Facebook page, it was a lot easier for them to do that. It wasn't a private group. It was, hey, there's an actual event. You guys can come hang out at my friend's house and try their beer. So that's kind of where it started. And over the years, every time we would brew beer, we would talk about it. We did a lot of live videos, which really engaged people. It pulled them in and let them see in real time what was going on. Once we got to a place where we decided, okay, we're really going to do this, we're going to open a brewery, it was cool to have people already at that point. We had a couple hundred people kind of following our story. So we could bring people along that journey with us. When we were touring different potential venues, different buildings, we would do live videos. We'd take people along and like, hey, we're looking at this building. Could this be the future site of Presidential? Took them along on things like, hey, this is where we're at with site plans. This is where we're at with financing. Just really kind of pulled back the curtain on the entire process to bring people into what does it look like to build a brewery from the beginning. And that really set us up for a lot of success before we even opened our doors. We had just over 1,000 followers on Facebook, which for big breweries, that's nothing. That's piddly. But for a brewery that didn't even exist yet, that was pretty cool for us.
Yeah.
We had 1,000 people in our community that we didn't even know who were invested in our success. They had been following the story. They were people who lived right here in the neighborhoods right around where our building is. And they were excited for us. They felt like they knew us a little bit just because we were continually sharing our experience from day one or day negative 600, really.
Yeah, right.
So it was really cool. It felt weird having a Facebook page for a business that wasn't even open yet. But by just being very authentic and transparent about our journey with it, it really got people excited about what we were doing and got us that buy-in. And it really got us authentic followers. So not just people who clicked like because we did a contest. If you invite so many people to like this page, we'll give away a gift certificate.
Right.
But it was authentic followers that actually were interested in engaging with us and they wanted to see our content, which also set us up for success in a different way because we had people who were truly interested in what we were doing.
I think that's a tremendous strategy because, again, you've got a lot to talk about even before you're open. Now, your guys' story, I think, is even deeper than most businesses. And I actually work with a brewery that was doing a lot of the before they opened, they were showing different points of the construction and using Facebook to showcase to the community, here's the brewery that's going to be in your neighborhood. Come check it out. We're shooting for this date, so on and so forth. And from that, people were just climbing on that page to see what would come next.
That's exactly it. It was building that excitement, and we had that hype train going long before we didn't even know where our building was going to be, and we already had people excited about what was happening. So by the time we actually opened our doors, we had already built this nice foundation of followers who were already on our team. They were already excited for us, and they actually gave a crap about what we had to say. We weren't flooding their feeds with useless information. They were excited to see what we were going to post about and what we were going to talk about.
Are you looking for a better way to attack your social media efforts? Do you need help developing a plan that will help you maximize your initiatives? Do you feel like you're doing nothing but wasting time on sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's time for a jumpstart. Check out the Breaking Brews Social Media Jumpstart and discover an easy way for us to join forces and take your business to new levels. From a complete analysis of your current presence to an intensive strategy session designed to develop and execute your plan of attack, the Social Media Jumpstart is a great way to build a foundation that will lead to long-term results. To learn more, visit www.breakingbrews.com/jumpstart today. That's actually a great segue into my next question for you, Kayleigh. What type of content do you publish on your page? Do you do strictly brewery promotion, or do you do some industry promotion, conversation starters, or do you do a combination of everything?
We try to do a decent mix of all of that. Obviously, like everybody who has a business Facebook page, we post things like special events that we're doing, or, hey, we just tapped this beer, or here's our food special for the week, things like that. But we also have found some of our most successful posts that we've ever posted have been posts where we're talking about other businesses in the community, where we're talking about, hey, Jake and I are at this beer festival today. So we're sharing a live video from this beer festival. We're not pouring. We didn't have a booth there. We were just going to check out everybody else's stuff. And that's one thing that we've loved using our platform for, is encouraging community within the beer community. Encouraging our people, like, hey, we're closed on Wednesdays. So a lot of times on Wednesdays, we'll say, hey, we're down the road here at Latitude 42. You guys should come check this place out. They have a killer happy hour. Or, we went over to see our friends at the Distant Whistle, check out their new beer. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff just to encourage people to get out in the community, try a lot of different places. And then we try to do just kind of goofy stuff, honestly. Like on Father's Day, we had Founding Father's Day. My husband walked around in a Thomas Jefferson wig all day, and it was ridiculous. And so he's goofy and does funny stuff like that. So we're constantly posting, videos or photos of him just being weird and doing funny stuff. And I think primarily because from the start of our Facebook page, people have connected with us because we are authentic and just we're who we are. We're not a business writing some scripted stuff to post based on some social media guru's template of what's going to get us content or connection. We're sharing, look, this is what's going on around here. Right now, Jake's walking around in a stupid wig. So this is what we're going to share. So it's a mix of all of those things, because we want to keep things authentic and interesting. We don't want to just, here's our spammy post about our hours every day, or this is what our tap list is every day. Those things are helpful, but I think it's got to be mixed with authentic, original content as well.
Something that showcases your personality.
Exactly.
And that's what you guys are doing. Again, I mean, you're right. You can still share happy hour and share this is what's happening. And,
Sure.
This is what's on tap this week. I think that's all important information. But if you do that every day, it just gets to a point where everybody's like, well, I get it.
Exactly.
And this is the same thing as yesterday. I don't need to see this. So
yes, your hours haven't changed. We know you're open from this time to this time.
Yep. What is the frequency in which you post? Because I know that over the years it's changed. The old rule of thumb used to be post 3 to 4 times a day, and then when Facebook's algorithm changed, they recommended just posting once a day. I still stick to that once a day axiom. What do you guys do at Presidential?
We're generally, I'd say we fall between 5 to 8 times a week. And our rule is, if I don't have something worthwhile to post, I'm not going to post something just to post something.
That's smart.
And I know that might not be what the social media experts say, but we're very intentional about keeping our page relevant with content, and I don't ever want to be spammy. I've unfollowed business pages because they're posting annoying, repetitive stuff that's not helpful. And I know Facebook's algorithm makes it tough to stay relevant. Everyone's news feeds are flooded with so much information all the time, and it's right. You have to be competitive and consistent to get into someone's newsfeed. However, I definitely believe that I would rather have an audience of actual, authentic, engaged followers rather than an audience of 10,000 and 20 of them actually give a crap about what I'm saying. So
absolutely.
5 to 8 times a week. It kind of depends on what we've got going on. Right now, we've been posting a little bit more because next week, due to our theme, obviously 4th of July is a big deal for us. So we have events going on every single day next week. Some days we have multiple events. So there's a lot of stuff to communicate right now. So we've been posting a little bit more maybe than usual. But generally speaking, on an average week, 5 to 8 times a week, try to not do it more than once a day unless there's something really, really relevant or really important to share.
Now, I know the big theme we're talking about here is organic content. I think what I'm about to ask next really ties into that. Do you ever boost any of your content?
We do, actually. And part of this is, as a new business, just kind of testing what happens when we do. We've tried a few different budget amounts, messed with different audiences. Facebook gives you quite a few tools, honestly, to be able to target different audiences. So we've messed around with which ones actually give us the results that we would want. Kind of our general rule for boosting content, I'm only going to pay to boost something if it's a post where I'm trying to reach an audience that's not already following my page. So for example, we just launched our happy hour. So we have Happy Eisenhower Monday through Friday, 2 to 5 p.m. That was something that most of our in-house people who already followed our Facebook page, they've heard about this already. I wanted to reach people who were in a very targeted area but didn't already follow my page. So that was something that we boosted to try and get it out there. So things like that, when we're launching something new, when we launched our Lunch Club loyalty rewards program, we boosted that post. Generally only things where I'm trying to get it out to an audience that doesn't already know who we are and what we're about.
So piggybacking on boosting posts, do you guys do anything with paid advertising on Facebook?
Just through those boosted posts are the only things that we've done. So
no actual ads, like building an ad campaign?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
Just those, pay $20 to $50 to boost your post to this audience, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have some more episodes coming up where we're going to zero in on the paid advertising aspect of Facebook too, because what we're looking to do here is create a very well-rounded marketing platform for you guys, or marketing resource for you guys, so you can get the most from Facebook. Because without question, as you're learning as you listen to this episode of the podcast, there's a ton you can do with it, and it's where everybody's at. So many people are utilizing Facebook for so many things in their lives right now. I guess this is more of a question that I ask people just to see the reaction sometimes. I'll ask you too, Kayleigh. What do you say to the person that just shits all over Facebook? Because it happens. So many people are just so against this platform, and I've never been able to figure out why, because in my opinion, it's done so much to connect us as a society these days. And I mean, I know there's aspects of it that we might raise an eyebrow at, but overall, the platform has really given us a lot. So what do you say to the person that just can't stand the Facebook platform?
I get it. There's a number of times where I'm scrolling through just, my personal news feed, and I'm like, why do I even waste my time? There's so many, especially, with politics and just controversial everything. Everybody is free to post what they want, but then you get the keyboard warriors who just want to argue about everything. And there's times for me that Facebook is just exhausting. And as a consumer, as a user, away from the business side of it, there have been a number of times where I'm like, I just need to hang up my hat with Facebook. I need to be done with it. But, from a business side, it's been one of the biggest tools that we've used. And I think personally, there's a lot out there. There's Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. There's all sorts of, just in the social media realm, there's a lot. But in my experience, in my personal preference, Facebook is the best way and the easiest way for me to interact with customers. I think it's the easiest way to have somebody make a comment and I can instantly reply. And it's the best platform for dialogue. And that's what we want, is dialogue. And we've had already some uncomfortable dialogue. We've posted a picture of we have a life-size Barack Obama cutout. And we posted a picture holding, the Obama beer in front of the Obama cutout. And we had people spout off about politics that way. And then we also have a Donald Trump one, and we've had people spout off that way. And it's not always pleasant, but we've been able to use that to kind of lead into, look, one of the things that we want to encourage you is how to have good, positive dialogue, how to talk about things. You can have a differing opinion, but still respect somebody. You can be kind to somebody, even if you don't agree. So it is, and it's tough from a business side too, just with the changing algorithms all the time, and how do you keep up with everything? And it's exhausting, honestly. But in my experience, it's been a really, really positive tool just for, like you mentioned, the event management side especially. It's the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to get information out to a large group of people. And if you ever had a post that goes viral, you know how wild it can be to sit there and watch those numbers tick up and see people liking and commenting and sharing something like wildfire.
Yeah.
You can't get it for free. Like, we had a post like that. I paid $0. It was not a boosted post. And we had, hundreds of shares in a couple hours, and just all of this crazy, like 20,000 some people saw this post in a couple of hours. So yeah, Facebook sucks sometimes, but the reality of it is,
Show
if
over.
if you're ignoring Facebook, you're missing out on a really large market segment, I think, especially in the beer world.
I agree. And you guys listening, you go back and listen to session 15 with Bailey Allegretti from Grist House Craft Brewery, who came on to talk about her marketing efforts at the brewery. And she had mentioned how she had posted an event that just went viral within minutes.
Yeah.
And they called it Firefest, not even trying to play off of the whole shit show that was the real Firefest. But I think this was even before the documentaries that put it back center stage came out. Bailey told the story of putting that out there, and it took off. And they had a very successful event, but they had tons of conversation. It was seen by so many people in such a quick time frame, and they didn't spend a dime on it. And that's powerful. If you put the right piece of content out there, people are going to grab a hold of it, and it's going to spread quickly.
Yep.
And not many other networks offer that type of service. Or it's really powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
I know. It's funny. I was talking with my friends the other day about Facebook, and I was saying, like, I've pretty much got my newsfeed conditioned to beer stuff, sports stuff, wrestling stuff, and Barstool pizza reviews. So when I go on Facebook, I enjoy myself because I've looked at this content so much. Facebook gets me.
Oh yeah, and people need to discover like the unfollow button or the snooze button. You can snooze stuff that you don't want to hear about. You can unfollow people that bug you.
Yeah,
it's the good stuff.
Typically, I keep everything out there, so I keep an open mind about things when they appear in my feed. But the one thing I had to get rid of was TikTok. I couldn't take it anymore.
Oh yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, and I still see that on Twitter, and it's brutal. But that's a story for another day. I know that was talked about in the past too, but we don't need to get into that. So you mentioned how much you lean on the event management portion of Facebook. Do you do anything outside of Facebook to promote the special events that are happening at your brewery?
Primarily we use Facebook for just about everything. We do things, in-house. We've got posters and table tents with an upcoming list of events that are going to happen in the next few weeks, things like that. We do post about things on Instagram. Instagram's tough for me just because it's not a great platform to have dialogue. So if people want to know things, I prefer Facebook's comment structure just for responding to stuff, linking to things, RSVPing. Like, Instagram's great for some stuff, not great for that, in my opinion. The only other thing that we really use is email marketing campaigns, just because there are people out there who are not on Facebook. So we have a 200-person mug club here, so I need to be able to reach out to them and let them know when events are happening. And there are a number of them who don't do Facebook. And same with our existing customers. We have an email list that we'll send out, not with the frequency that we use Facebook, of course, but, hey, here's a list of some of the upcoming events that are going on. Here's the basic info, just to get it in front of people. But about 80% of the weight is Facebook. So,
in your opinion, how can breweries get the most from implementing an organic posting strategy on Facebook?
So, and this is our experience. I'm obviously by no means a social media expert at all. This is all just strictly what we've experienced. We've only been open for 3 months, first of all. But in the 2 years leading up to opening our brewery, the interaction that we had going on there, and then, since we've opened, here's what we've done. Some of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for us, we've already talked about just authentic posting. Being who you are, having your own voice, not trying to filter your posts through a corporate, very structured, proper, whatever. People are going to see authenticity. They can sense a genuine person behind the posts. So that's important. I think really you've got to be consistent. You've got to be available. You can't post something and then never respond to comments or questions. You have to be involved, be engaged, be willing to chat back and forth with customers. Just generally creating an environment where you are engaging with your customer as though they were sitting on the other side of your bar. If you were standing behind the bar and somebody asked you a question, you wouldn't ignore them and get back to them 3 days later. Or you wouldn't sit there and say, hold on, let me write out a super professional, perfectly crafted response, and then I'll answer your question. You're yourself. You're authentic. You're real with them. You put a smile on. You're friendly. And our approach to social media is just engaging with people the same way that we would if we were hanging out drinking a beer with them. And if you're going to go hard on Facebook, which I think you should, be yourself. People come to you for your environment, your vibe. They come to your brewery because they want to hang out there. And if your social media isn't reflecting that, then it's maybe not going to hurt you, but it's not going to help either. I think when you're looking at ramping up an organic Facebook strategy, it's got to start with authenticity and just letting your personality shine through, and then also just being consistent and available, being there to communicate with people all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, you've hit two of the biggest points that I see being important with Facebook. The authenticity and the consistency has to be there. And I mean, and another word that it's pretty close to authenticity is personality. And
yeah, absolutely.
having your personality show through your Facebook, that's one of the big mistakes I think a lot of, not just breweries, but businesses in general seem to miss, is that your digital presence is painting the picture of what it's going to be like to visit your venue. So
exactly.
if you're creating this very rigid corporate structure or corporate-like structure on your Facebook page, it's not exactly appealing, and people might wonder, well, what's it going to be like when I go there? Is it going to be people that I want to talk to, or is it just going to be super prim and proper, and I'm not going to really have a good time and be able to relax? So the environment that you're creating online very much reflects the environment that you have in your tap room or in your restaurant or in your business in general. So make sure that that personality shines through, so when people do come see you, they get a taste of it online, but they're really getting a full dose of what you have to offer with that personality when they're in the house.
That's exactly it. And we get a lot of people who come in and they will ask servers and bartenders, so who writes your social media posts? Who's behind the Facebook post? Because I am by nature goofy, obnoxious, extroverted. I am who I am, and if you read our Facebook posts, it is exactly like if I was firing off a text to my best friend. It's cheeky, it's lighthearted. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We take our beer seriously and nothing else, as Jim Cook from Sam Adams likes to say.
Right.
And it's fun because people will come in and they feel like they already know us, even if we've never met them before. And there are some places. There's a couple breweries here in the Kalamazoo area that cater a little bit more to the executive crowd, the professional crowd. It's more of, this is where I would go for a business lunch, a business happy hour. It's a little bit more upscale. Those places are going to have a different approach to social media than we are. We're your neighborhood bar just with better beer.
So how would you recommend breweries gauge their success with their organic posts?
What we really look at, our barometer for success with those posts, is engagement. So I know that's a weird word with Facebook. It can mean a million different things. I'm looking at, are people commenting? Are they sharing? And are they tagging their friends? And generally, in our experience, our posts that have gotten the widest reach and that have kind of blown up are the ones where people are tagging other people and the ones where they're sharing the post. And some of those, for example, we have a program here where people can buy a beer for a veteran. So they can add a beer to their tab, they fill out a little tag and put it on the wall, and when a veteran comes in, if there are tags on the wall, they can grab one and redeem it for a free beer. And we had posted about that, and it went nuts because everybody knows a veteran,
Sure.
or 2 or 10 or 20. So people were sharing it and tagging their friends like, hey, look, go, you can drink a free beer here. And posts like that where people they want to share it with others, they want to bring other people into that conversation, those are our biggest, most successful posts. So generally speaking, likes are fine. It is what it is. But the most productive ones for us are those tags, those shares, and even just organic comments anyway. Because when somebody comments, if I comment on a business's post, my friends are going to see that pop up in their feed. They're going to see, so-and-so, Kayleigh commented on Non-La Burger's post today. So anytime you can get people to stop and actually type something or hit the share button, those are the kinds of posts that I'm going to look at that and say, okay, this was successful. I want to replicate this again.
Yeah, I think that's really where it's at. Getting people to talk about it, take a few minutes out of their day, because the like is simple. That's a quick one push and you're done. But if you're actually taking the time to drop a comment or make sure that this is getting in front of a friend, you got something when you put a piece of content out there that results in that.
Absolutely. last fall I had gone to a conference down in Nashville and went to a breakout session with a guy named Brady Shearer. He owns a website called Pro Church Tools. So it's for people in ministry, but he's a social media freak. All social media all the time. It's what he does. And one of the things that he shared with us at that conference was the concept of stop the scroll. Because if you think about when I'm sitting there on Facebook, I'm on my phone, I'm mindlessly scrolling through hundreds, if not thousands of posts a day. And many of them, I couldn't even tell you what they said. I'm scrolling through until something makes me stop. That concept really stuck with me, that is our job as marketers, social media, advertisers, whatever, is to put something out there that's going to cause somebody to not only stop, but then also engage in some way. And a like isn't quite enough for me. That doesn't quite cross the threshold, because I can like something and still just keep flying past it. But if it's engaging or interesting enough or different or exciting or whatever enough for me to tag my friends or tag my husband or even share it on my page, it takes a lot to get me to share something. But if you can post something that's engaging enough, whether that's just funny or unique or wow or whatever, that to me is the real benchmark of, okay, this is high quality content that is really going to be successful in pushing out an organic campaign.
Yeah, I had heard this term. It was actually, coincidentally enough, we talked about Firefest earlier on the Hulu documentary.
Yes.
They had talked about that initial campaign when they were announcing this festival was going to be a thing, and the term they used was creating pause.
Yes.
And
exactly.
I was watching that, and it just grabbed me, and
Yep.
I was so like sucked into that term, and there couldn't be anything more true in today's world. That I mean, that's what we scroll and we probably miss 9/10 of what we're
Right.
actually scrolling through. But if something jumps out, we pause.
Exactly.
In many ways, we
And
pause
even if you take
conversation, we pause
a
the
half
actual
second,
scrolling. So
exactly. If it's half a second to just actually digest what you're looking at instead of, it's the same thing that in the beer world we fight for shelf space
mhm.
in retail stores. And if it's not the coolest design can or the latest, XYZ, people are overwhelmed by the quantity of what's out there. And we're constantly having to fight to do something that's going to grab attention. And it's no different with social media. We have to grab their attention, make them stop, and make them say, this is something worth sharing with somebody else, because I need somebody else to enjoy this as much as I do. And it's tough to do that. But when you
Oh,
can do
sure.
it, it's wildly successful and it costs you nothing.
And that's why they say like the first 3 to 5 seconds of a video is what's going to grab
Yeah.
somebody. If you don't have them by then, they're gone.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so if a listener that's tuning into our show today, Kayleigh, is looking to get their page up and running from the very beginning, what would you lay out for them as a good starting point, and how can they get the most from those efforts in the early going?
Yeah, so I came up with a couple things that I would consider the first baby steps. And the first one is just researching your competition. Look around and check out places in your area that have a great, engaging Facebook audience and look at what they're doing. Find out what type of content they're posting. How often are they posting it? I don't believe that there's one correct algorithm. There's one, set template of things that you can do that's going to work. It is so dynamic based on where you are, who are the people around you, what are the demographics in your area. So take a look at what other people around you are doing. And if they're dead, take notes of that too, because if there's a Facebook page that's dull, it's not getting any interaction from customers at all, that's a sign that this is maybe not a pattern you want to emulate. And you don't want to go out and just copy everybody else's stuff, but be aware of how the people in your area, specifically your target audience, how are those people engaging with the places in your area? What are they looking for? What kind of content are they responding to? So that was really helpful for us getting started, is just kind of figuring out who is my audience and what are they looking for? What do they care about? One thing that we did is we posted everything, but not just anything. So from day one, we brought our people along for the ride. We showed them every step of the way. We even today, like we'll post Facebook stories, Facebook posts, Instagram stories of our brew day. So we'll show people, hey, we're dry hopping a beer today. Here's a doofy slow-mo video of my husband dumping a whole bunch of hops into the fermenter. So we bring people along with us, and we take them through every step of what we do. But we don't just post stuff that's irrelevant. We don't post for the sake of posting. I talked about that a little bit earlier, that if we don't have anything that's exciting or engaging or worthwhile, I'm not going to post just to post. But we're also bringing in the full scope of this business, the front of the house, the back of the house, production side, even just when Jake and I go on a date, where are we going to go? What breweries are we checking out? Because people are interested in who we are. They want to care about us as people, as business owners, as a business as a whole. So be consistent, be posting things regularly, but not filling people's feeds with boring, useless stuff. And then engaging with local community. I talked about this a little bit earlier as well. We have brought in other businesses to our social media. And it's been interesting because it's different and it's new and it's not many people are doing it. A lot of breweries will post like, hey, we did a collaboration with so-and-so today. We posted a story, one of our most popular Facebook posts to date. The first week that we opened, we're closed on Wednesdays. So on Wednesday, we had posted, hey, just a reminder to everybody, we are not open today. But on our stretch of road here where our business is, these are 3 businesses that jumped in, 4 businesses, that while we were building this place and while we were getting open, each of these 4 businesses, 2 breweries, a pizza restaurant, and a seafood restaurant, all helped us in some way. One of them gave us receipt paper for our printers when we didn't realize that we got the wrong stuff the day we were opening. We got grain from one of the breweries. The brewery a quarter mile down the road from us sends their customers over to come check us out. The pizza restaurant literally fed us every single day during the last 2 weeks of construction. And we tagged all those places. We told people, hey, these are our neighbors. You can't come see us today, but you should go see these guys. And it blew people's minds. They were like literally astonished that a business would suggest their customers go spend money somewhere else.
Right.
But what it did is it built relationship with those neighbors. Mm-hmm. We had already started to form relationships with these other businesses, and it sent a message to our customers that we are in this for the community. We want you to be a part of business in Portage, not just us. We want the entire city of Portage to be doing well. We want business in the craft beer industry to be doing well. We all do better when people are spending their money here in this neighborhood. So just looking for ways, and we do that a lot, where, you know, we'll go visit another brewery and we'll tag them in it. And on the one hand, it puts visibility out there to people who follow those other pages too. So that does bring us some new, page likes, but really it helps for us affirm what we stand for as a business, that we are involved in our community deeply. We love and respect the other business owners who are here. We're all in this together. So especially for a new brewery really getting started, that's a huge staple. Implement yourself as a part of your community. Let people know that you want to be a part of this place that they live and they spend money and they love. And you're not here to try and, stake your claim, be your own little thing, and hide away from the rest of your area.
I think that aspect of community is so powerful. And I look at,
it really is.
In the South Hills where I live, and I work with Spoonwood Brewing, we have 2 breweries probably within 2 miles of that brewery. Uh-huh. And we've talked about this so many times about how it creates a destination instead of just having the one business. You can come out and you can visit all of us and enjoy good beer, enjoy good food, and have an experience that it makes it for the person. I mean, I'm not sure how it is in your neck of the woods, but in Pittsburgh, it's very territorial where people don't necessarily want to cross bridges, go through tunnels. They want to stay in their neighborhood. But that destination impact gets people to make that trip because now they have more places to check out in one drive that it just makes it so much more worthwhile. And you don't want to you don't want to create the competition from the standpoint that you're going to be enemies. Everybody's going to be vying for a piece of the pie in that neighborhood. There's no doubt about that. But working together, the results are going to be so much better for everybody because you're going to work together to attract a bigger crowd. And when you do that, everybody wins.
That's 100%. Here in Michigan, it's the same way. We've got little clusters in Kalamazoo, there's 12 or 13 breweries, I think, downtown Kalamazoo. Portage, where we are, from my house, it's about 20 minutes to get down to Bell's, for example, in a lot of those downtown breweries. Out in our side of town, there's 2 or 3 breweries out here. And there's a few more that have been popping up. And realistically, as a new brewery, somebody is probably not going to drive an hour away just to come to me. But if they can come to me and the guy a quarter mile down the street, and the guy a mile and a half down the street, and the guy 3 miles out the other way, that cluster effect is real. And when we support each other and when we're posting about like, hey, we've got all of these great neighbors right here, it is that destination idea that like, oh, cool, I can come. We have a thing here called Tag a Brew, and it's basically a charm bracelet for beer drinkers.
Okay.
So these little copper tags, and almost every brewery in Michigan has them now. So we get all these collectors that will come and they'll make a day of it. They want to hit 7 or 8 breweries. So when there's a cluster of us that, we've got the little map, we're like, yep, your next stop, you want to go here, 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 and here. It makes it where people are like, okay, I'll take a day and go hit a bunch of these places. And it builds that idea for consumers. When I'm posting on my Facebook, hey, we've got these neighbors around here, it gives them the idea that, oh, like I can actually not just drive all the way there for just this one place, but there's a bunch of cool spots that I can check out that I've never been. So it's definitely beneficial. Technically, we're all competition, sure.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we each kind of have our own niche. We've got our own vibe. Everybody's a little different. But especially when we're looking at trying to pull out of area visitors, that makes a huge impact in what people see as a viable destination versus, and maybe someday I'll get to it.
Yeah, and speaking of that point, when you're trying to get those people from outside your area, it doesn't necessarily reflect good on you if you're talking shit on your neighbor.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go to the place that's actually being nice. So.
I think everybody probably, no matter where you are, there's a business owner, whether it's a brewery or a restaurant or somebody, people get those reputations. I can think of a couple that have not great reputations about, being nasty to fellow brewery owners, being not very good at customer service, kind of being self-serving and standoffish and snobby. And as a consumer, I never really wanted to patronize those places. And now as a brewery owner, I'm not going to tell my customers, hey, you guys should go check them out. I'll tell you all day long to go visit this laundry list of awesome breweries. But that one with the guy who's kind of a jerk, I'm not gonna suggest that when somebody comes in from out of town and asks me where they should go next, you're not gonna be on that list.
Right. And another way that you can utilize your Facebook page and your social media network as a whole, if you're distributing your beer, you can always use those networks to tell consumers,
Absolutely.
hey, my beer is now available at XYZ Pub.
Yes.
Go check them out. And that just helps them get a bigger crowd, and then they're going to be more prone to do more business with you. So helping out and just implementing that whole community aspect can really help your efforts from organic levels and even paid levels if you go to that level of Facebook as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Kayleigh, I want to thank you for taking some time to share your knowledge with us today. It sounds like you guys have some fun things going on, and I've got to make a trip to Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before we wrap up here, do you have any last words of advice for our fellow Facebook marketers out there?
I think, as we've mentioned 100 times today, it's all about just authenticity and being unique to who you are. Embrace what makes you unique. There's, in most markets, dozens, if not even hundreds, depending on where you live, different brewery options for people to go to. And especially, when I'm visiting a new place, the first thing I do is jump up on Facebook and I check out, all right, what breweries are in that area? I'll take a look at their Facebook, partially looking for what beer do they have on tap right now? Do they have any events going on? Is there, live music this night that I can go check out? I look for that stuff on Facebook, but I'm also paying attention to what their vibe is in their little corner of the internet. Because if I have to choose from 20 different places and I can narrow it down to 2 places that seem like they're a lot of fun and they're real cool people, that's where I'm going to go. So just being authentic with who you are, and as a bonus tip, use photos and videos whenever possible. If you're posting a plain text post on Facebook, it's going to get lost in the sea of information.
Indeed.
Even if it's as simple as, hey, our hours are this for today, put it on a graphic, slap it on a background. There's a ton of free websites out there and apps for your phone that you can turn something into a graphic. Those are going to stop the scroll a lot faster than a couple sentences that people aren't going to read.
Absolutely.
So whenever you can, even if it's a dumb selfie of you wearing a Thomas Jefferson wig, it'll make people stop even for a second and they're a lot more likely to read what you have to say and remember that post because you did something different to catch their attention.
You absolutely nailed it. I can't even add anything to that. That's perfect. All right, Kayleigh, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and we will talk to you again sometime in the future.
Sounds good.
All right, boys and girls, that is a wrap on session 25 of the Breaking Brews podcast. I'd like to once again thank Kayleigh Losey of Presidential Brewing for joining me on the show to wrap with you guys about Facebook, organic posting, and I hope you learned a lot today because I sure did. Kayleigh brought some great information to the podcast. And it was what I loved about what they've done is they really created a model that everyone should follow, is getting your Facebook and your social media presence as a whole started before you open your business. You can see how that catapulted them into some very quick success and really helped them gain traction as they opened their doors. Being a relatively young brewery, they were able to leverage the power of Facebook at an early point because they put in the time beforehand. So hats off to Kayleigh, hats off to her husband Jake. They're doing great things up at Presidential Brewing. I'm looking forward to taking a trip there at some point and seeing what they're doing. If you guys are in the Portage/Kalamazoo area, be sure to check out Presidential Brewing. And please, by all means, jump over to the Presidential Brewing Facebook page. Give them a like. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, as well as to their Instagram feed and their website. Check out everything that they're doing. And again, Kayleigh, thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate the knowledge and greatly appreciate your time. So as we look ahead to session 26 next week, we're going to keep rolling with the theme of Facebook. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am going to be joined by none other than Aaron Williams with Monday Night Brewing in Atlanta, Georgia. So I had mentioned that I had put out a post on the Craft Beer Professionals Facebook group, and Kayleigh had responded in regards to organic posting and everything she's doing in Presidential. Aaron was the first to respond about paid advertising and what they do with Monday Night to utilize ad campaigns, how they built a budget that has successfully helped them build their brand to be distributed in multiple states. And Aaron sent me a little care package to tap into, which I did as we went through that show. So next week, Session 26 of the Breaking Brews podcast, we're going to continue to unpack how you can be successful with Facebook, and we're going to talk about paid ad campaigns. Some great stuff lies ahead. Before we get to that point, you now have 25 sessions in the archives of the Breaking Brews podcast. Jump back. Check out the shows that you haven't heard yet. If you like what you hear, drop a review on iTunes. Let me know how I'm doing with the podcast. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, tell everybody you know about the Breaking Brews podcast. We are going to make this community grow, and every action you take will help the podcast find the ears of more thirsty beer enthusiasts and more thirsty beer professionals just like you. Greatly appreciate you taking the time to provide that feedback. Spread the word of the Breaking Brews podcast. You've got a whole week until session 26 drops. Jump back in those archives. Check out everything that you may have missed. Also, jump over to Facebook and join the Breaking Brews Podcast Central Facebook group. We're having some fun over there. I've been dropping some videos here and there, looking to ramp that up because we are quickly approaching the end of Season 1. We're going to cap the first season of the Breaking Brews podcast off after Session 30, and then there's going to be some downtime until fall. But I still want to wrap with you guys and not miss a beat. The Facebook group will be a big part of that. So jump over to Facebook, join the Breaking Brews Podcast Central Facebook group. Also, you can check me out on Instagram at Breaking Brews Co. I'll be dropping some more videos on there through Instagram TV. Lots of good stuff coming, and looking forward to being with you guys even when the season ends. So that's going to do it. Session 25 is officially in the history books. I am your host, Jason Sircone, for the Breaking Brews podcast. This has been the Word of the Port.